Hello everyone, my name is Paige McManus and I'm going to give a presentation on Robert Hansen, the serial killer famously known as the Butcher Baker. Robert Hansen was born on February 15th in 1939 in Estherville, Iowa to Danish immigrants. His father owned a bakery and was known as a strict disciplinarian. From a young age, Robert worked long hours in the bakery with his father. As a teenager, he was described as a loner, a social outcast, and painfully shy. The boys made fun of him for his stutter and severe acne. Any advances he made on girls would be instantly rejected. To cope with his difficult social life, he became an avid game hunter. He channeled all the rage and embarrassment from school into the sport of stalking animals. He became highly skilled with rifles and bows. When he was 18 years old, Hansen joined the United States Army and eventually became an assistant drill instructor in Pocahontas, Iowa. Shortly after, he married a young woman. Still feeling retaliation and mistreatment from the community, at age 21, Hansen convinced a friend to help him burn down a local school bus garage. Unfortunately for Hansen, the friend confessed, and Hansen was subsequently arrested and imprisoned for 20 months. Shocked by his behavior, his wife quickly divorced him while he was in prison, adding to the mountains of people in his life who had abandoned and rejected him. After release from prison, he was rearrested a few more times for crimes of petty theft. Then Hansen remarried another local woman who happened to be a devout Christian. Fed up with Iowa, Hansen decided to move to Anchorage, Alaska in 1967, at a time when Alaska was a fledgling state. He moved into a small community, had 2 children, and settled into a quiet life. He was well liked by his community and opened up a bakery, just like his father had always wanted him to. Fortunately, Hansen grew complacent with his ordinary life. In 1972, he was arrested twice, once for the abduction and attempted rape of a housewife, and again for raping a prostitute. Amazingly, he only served 6 months for his crimes. Emboldened by his ability to walk free after his crimes, he started his killing spree in 1973. His first kill did not go well. In the early 70s, he picked up a sex worker, and as he was driving her out of town, he pulled a gun on her. Not expecting her to fight back, Hansen and his victim tussled in the car, but after he stabbed her in the neck with a knife, things came to a quick end. After the near disaster of his first kill, Hansen learned to be more cautious. Initially, Hansen's victims included any woman who caught his eye. However, he quickly learned that strippers and prostitutes were not only harder to track, but also less likely to be missed. Hansen would abduct his victims and then take them to remote places outside the city, either by his car or private plane. In some cases, if the women complied, he would only rape the women and then return them to Anchorage after threatening them into secrecy. But other times, Hansen would fly the women to a remote area in Alaska and set them free, making the women believe as if they had a chance to escape. Then, as they ran for their lives, he would track them down, hunting them like wild animals. Armed with a hunting knife and a .223 caliber Ruger Mini 14 rifle, he tortured the women with his chase for hours, or sometimes days at a time, until he located his prey and shot them like game. His favorite spot to kill was along rivers, just like the Connect River pictured up there, which was actually his favorite spot. In 1976, Hansen was arrested again and sentenced to 5 years, but it wasn't for the crime you'd expect. It was for shoplifting a chainsaw, which he appealed that sentence and was released shortly after. While he continued to prey on strippers and sex workers, who he forced to act out his twisted fantasies. Later, he was arrested again for assault. A turning point in this case occurred when Cindy Paulson, a 17-year-old teenage sex worker, was found by authorities barefoot, handcuffed, and running down the street. Paulson revealed that she had been kidnapped by Hansen and taken to the family home, where she was chained by the neck and raped and tortured for several days. Amazingly, she was able to escape while Hansen was preparing the plane, where he would have released her and hunted her down and killed her. She was able to leave her shoes behind as evidence. Hansen fit the description of the kidnapper perfectly. Paulson even described his stutter and identified his plane, what was inside his home. But police were still reluctant to bring him in. After all, though he was no stranger to trouble with the law, the local baker was well liked in the community. Hansen admitted that he had met the girl, but claimed she was setting him up because he had refused to pay her extortionate demands. When he told police about a strong alibi provided by a friend, he was released. Unfortunately, this release highlights the lack of empathy for rape victims and misogynistic mindsets of the time. It wasn't until bodies started showing up alongside .223 shell casings that Hansen became the prime suspect. The police soon obtained a warrant to search Hansen's plane, car, and home. They instantly found the evidence they needed, including jewelry from missing women, a .223 caliber rifle, and a hidden panel leading to a secret, soundproof basement. Most importantly, police found an aviation map of the area hidden in the headboard of the bed. The map was marked with tiny X's denoting the kill and burial sites of his victims. Some of the X marks matched up with where police had found bodies. There were 24 X's in all. Faced with the evidence in 1984, Hansen confessed to murdering 17 women and raping another 30 women over a 12-year period. The judge in the case reportedly said to the audience, quote, "Before you sits a monster, an extreme aberration of a human being who has walked among us. Not even his wife of 20 years had an inkling of his dark evil side. His crimes numb the mind." End quote. In exchange for a reduced conviction of 4 murders, Hansen agreed to assist police in locating the remaining bodies plotted on his kill map. Unfortunately, 5 of the bodies have still not been found to this day, and Hansen took the secret of their locations to his grave. He died in prison in 2014. Alaska has more serial killings per its population size than any other state, but Robert Hansen is by far Alaska's most infamous serial killer. Like the prototypical killer, Hansen was white, had a limited education, and operated alone. His modus operandi of hunting victims in remote areas of the wilderness was highly unusual, however, and unlike other serial killers, he preferred to use guns rather than manual weapons or hands. It's evident that Hansen's troubled childhood contributed to his vicious tendencies later on. Many serial killers experienced bullying as children. Hansen was no exception. He was bullied severely for his stutter, acne scars, and shy demeanor, girls repeatedly rejecting him likely fueled the flames for his atrocious future acts. As a child, he hurt, stalked, and killed animals. Research has demonstrated that people are 5 times more likely to become killers if they tortured animals in their youth. Simply put, he evolved from animal prey to human prey. Hansen was remarkably meticulous and secretive about his operations, which allowed him to commit so many murders. Like other successful serial killers, no one suspected Hansen could have done such a thing. He was well liked and seemed like an ordinary bakery owner. The prosecutor on the case commented on Hansen's ordinary demeanor. He was a small guy, Rothschild recalled. He came across as a little mild-mannered sort of fellow. You didn't initially have any sense of what he was hiding behind his mask. It wasn't until we weren't going along with his program of how the confession was going to go that I saw a very different Robert Hansen. When that happened, his face turned red, and the hair stood up on the back of his neck. There was a monster. He acted it out. He got really upset. He was screaming at employees for 10 minutes. As the course text mentions, most serial killers do not appear monstrous at all, but seem extremely ordinary, which makes them so dangerous. Like many other serial killers, Hansen chose easy targets like sex workers and prostitutes. Most of his targets were runaways with no family support. Most of the women hadn't even made it past high school. No one noticed when prostitutes went missing, especially since the construction of the Trans-Alaska Railroad at the time attracted a lot of sex workers, pimps, con artists, and drug dealers looking for quick riches during the construction boom. To kill his victims, it seems that Hansen applied dehumanization. Rather than humans, Hansen saw the sex workers as animals to be hunted. There was also a sexual, sadistic element, since he often raped his victims before killing them. Even if he didn't rape his victims, he was enthralled by the hunt for the women and the position of power placed upon him. He was literally the predator, and they were the prey. Hansen was also probably a sociopath, which contributed to the ease of murdering young women, neglecting his wife, and verbally abusing his children. Also worth mentioning, when police searched his home, they found jewelry from many of the missing women. Hansen kept jewelry as memorabilia for his atrocious crimes, a common feature shared by many serial killers to remember the victims or the memories associated with the killings. Interestingly, theories of crime don't do a great job of explaining Hansen's killings. Hansen was not deprived of any legitimate means. He had access to an education and jobs if he wanted. Hansen did not learn his violent ways through peers or family, discounting differential association theory. Hansen seemed to be bonded well enough to his community and occupation. Although school was a place of discomfort for him in the past, he was never able to make a lot of friends in high school. It seems that sociopathy, which may be biological in nature, coupled with intense bullying and social isolation, contributed to Hansen's sordid killing sprees. In synopsis, the Butcher Baker was a renowned serial killer in Alaska who claimed the lives of 17 women and raped many more. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope you learned something and have a wonderful rest of your day.